This is another archival upload of some of my previous mix critique videos. I apologize for the vertical format that this video is about to switch to. This is 226 to 230. This mix was sent in by Mason.
We don't share the same language and I feel dumb, and when you ask me questions I stand there dumb.
Alright, the vocals sound pretty cool. There's a really interesting effect on it. Most of the background instrumentation sounds good, especially considering that you left me a note saying that it's sounding thin intentionally for the first part of the song. That's fine, that's a creative choice, whatever. I think it probably sounds a little too thin. It almost sounds like you just used a single filter over like all of the instruments combined. When normally when I try to do this kind of like a telephone radio effect thing, I usually try to filter each instrument differently. So it still sounds kind of full, but also thin at the same time, if that makes sense. So we're not really entirely cutting out complete portions of the frequency spectrum across the whole track. We're just cutting out different portions of the frequency spectrum for different instruments. So we still have a relatively full frequency balance, but the individual instruments themselves sound thinner.
You woke don't mean shit if you are not conscious.
Alright, when we get to the part where the instruments finally open up, it's like super muddy. You got way too much going on the low end, like way too much subs, like too much low mids. You gotta reduce that. You gotta carve certain frequencies out to make it sound okay. Like it's really overpowering right now. This mix was sent in by Harry. Okay, so obviously the guitar is pretty out of tune. I'm assuming this is only going to be for the intro, and if that's the case, it's a cool stylistic choice for the intro. That being said, the intro is 4 times as long as it should be. I'm looking at the waveform. We're only halfway through it now. We still got another 2 times through the progression to go. Like, you should have done this progression 1 time and then gone right into the actual track. Alright, you like way overdid it with the distortion. There is way too much distortion on that. It's really harsh and nasty. It's like it's painful. Other than that, the drums sound pretty good. It's not like a pristine drum recording, but it works for the vibe of the song. The bass, from what I can hear of it, sounds pretty good, but like the level of distortion and just like nasty high mids in the guitar is ruining everything. Yeah, man, honestly, like, it's a vibe, I get it, but like, literally, if that guitar wasn't so harsh and nasty, this would be a cool track. Again, it's not like a pristine recording, but it has a vibe to it, which I can completely respect. A lot of my favorite records growing up weren't pristine sounding recordings, they just had a vibe to it, and that's a cool thing to do. But this guitar tone is completely ruining everything for me. This mix was sent in by Max.
What's left of this picture frame, the so-called life? I don't think I've given enough.
Alright, man, honestly, this sounds fucking awesome. If I gotta get nitpicky here, which I'm gonna do, cymbals are a little harsh in the upper mids, so are the guitars. Like, not much, like, it sounds still really good, it's just a little too harsh in the upper mids overall. The snare, I would really like a little more of that airy top end out of the snare. Like, it's got pretty good punch, but I feel like it's just missing a little bit of top end. And then the sub drop going into the chorus, that was really overpowering. You gotta dial that back a little bit, because that was just way too much low end. Like, sub drops are cool, but it's really overpowering, so I would bring that back a bit. But honestly, it sounds really fucking good so far. Okay, honestly, man, really easy fix here. If you have all of your instruments hitting a bus without the vocals before the final mix bus, really all you need to do is on that bus that has all the instruments on it, don't do this to the vocal track, leave the vocals alone, but on all of the instruments, you need to cut a little bit of 2K and boost a little bit of 5K. Literally just that, and I think this whole track would be perfect. This mix was sent in by Don.
If you want the best, then you can be.
All right, honestly, this one sounds pretty good so far. I'm really only noticing two things. You're missing a little bit of low end, probably in like the 100 to 200 hertz range, I would say is where it's really lacking. The mid range sounds really good overall. Like it's missing a little bit of that low end energy, and I think that's where you're going to find it. Other than that, if this hasn't been mastered yet, don't worry about it, but the overall volume definitely needs to come up a little bit. And honestly, I would like the whole thing to be compressed a little bit more, maybe get a little more pump out of the track, like just add a little bit more movement to the whole thing. But honestly, other than those two things, like this sounds really good. Like it's a really well balanced mid range. Like that's really it. You just need a little bit more low end energy and a little bit more compression.
Back, I got your back. Back, I got your back. Back, I got your back. I got your back.
Yeah, man, that's really it. You need a little bit more low end energy, a little bit more compression. Other than that, this is a great mix. This mix was sent in by Connor. First things I'm noticing, the bass needs to be backed down a little bit to blend correctly with the guitar. The drums are way too quiet. They're not cutting through nearly enough. It mostly just sounds like guitar with a little too much low end because the bass is a little too loud. So the main things here are balance issues, like nothing is leveled well compared to anything else. The other thing is your compression settings are a little off. Like you definitely have the attack time set too fast on definitely the bass, but also it sounds like it's a little too fast on the drums as well. Like EQ sounds fine. That's really the main things here is just your balances are way off. You got to spend way more time with the faders because it mostly sounds like just guitar. The drums are like barely peeking through. The bass is definitely a little too loud. It is blending well EQ wise with the guitar, but it sounds like there's a little too much low and a little too much mud because that bass is a little too loud. And then just your compression settings. You got to slow down the attack on the bass and the drum compression because it's so fast that it's taking out all the energy of the transients.